How long has it been since you took that off? I mean in front of somebody else.
Star Wars, nothing but Star Wars. Give me the Star Wars,
Bienvenidos, worldwide fans of our planet's hottest entertainment with an edge in a galaxy far, far away. Jaime En Fuego here, welcoming you once more to my ongoing coverage here on my namesake program, Enfuegotainment of, that's right, Star Wars, The Mandalorian, the Disney Plus series that is pretty much getting people to subscribe to Disney Plus for the most part, or at least, get that 7-day trial and see if the series is worth it for the $6.99 a month, at least being the introductory price before they start tossing all kinds of new content on there. But yes, this fourth episode is called, or fourth chapter, I should specify, is called Sanctuary, and it's directed by Bryce Dallas Howard, son, man, what am I saying? She's a babe. Daughter of Mr. Ronnie Howe, none other than Opie, and, various others. Happy Days, I mean, come on, man. Amazing director in his own right, and, Bryce has acted in everything from Black Mirror to Jurassic World. She's done all kinds of rad status stuff, and she is now the second woman after Deborah Chow to direct something Star Wars related, which is pretty cool. Regrettably, this is the weakest episode in the show so far, and that's kind of a bummer, and I've been doing these as rapido reviews, so yes, I'm not going to go into extreme spoilery details or anything of that nature, but I can at least give context following our previous episode, the third one, which was called The Sin, and most definitely the best, most action-packed, exciting episode that we have had so far. And it was where our Mando, as Carl Weathers was calling him, our Mandalorian, our lead character, had second thoughts after turning over his bounty of our Baby Yoda to these either former Imperials or, criminals that have employed stormtroopers, whatever you want to classify them as. But nonetheless, he had second thoughts, and just the amount that he was able to emote without, actually saying much, or just seeing facial expressions, I don't know. It was a very impressive piece of work. The fight at the end between all of those Mandalorians and the bounty hunters was bad to the ass. I like the fact that I can at least spoil the previous episode at the onset of a new episode. But yeah, so he escapes the planet and Baby Yoda in tow, and he's trying to find somewhere to lay low for a little bit. And lo and behold, he finds this planet that has a isolated community of farmers that are being ravaged by these raider, marauder types that look like bulldogs. And very cool, practical effects and makeup and stuff on them. And I must give Bryce credit in the fact that it's a very well-directed episode. Some of the aerial shots of the farm, I like being on a green planet, it's got a, Moon of Endor vibe in that regard, and we even get some nods with one particular, I guess, piece of machinery, without spoiling things, that pops up halfway through the episode to mention what it is. Would be a spoiler of sorts, but I had no idea that Gina Carano was going to be in this show. I've looked at the casting list and it just went over my head for whatever reason, but yeah, she is a former rebel soldier that is also in hiding herself, and she calls the Imperials, which, the Empire being no more, this taking place after Return of the Jedi and before the First Order comes into play in the new trilogy. But yeah, she calls them imps, which I did find to be incredibly amusing, and I will give Gina Carano some credit in the fact that she has come a long way from the MMA fighter that she was to, I think she did a Fast and the Furious film or two, maybe just one, I don't know, I don't watch those in that particular franchise, nothing since the Tokyo Drift, and I hear they've become significantly superior since then, but yeah, not necessarily my jam, but she was okay in Deadpool, but she had more charisma, better delivery and stuff, and I still will give, our Game of Thrones, Tomeboy credit and stuff, but the script here is really where I was just bored, and I felt like it was pandering, and so these farmers that are getting plundered by these marauders that I mentioned. So after Mando gets there with Baby Yoda with the intention of hiding out for a little while, seeing who is tracking him, if anybody, I mean, hopefully nobody, is at least his intention for going to this particular planet that he thinks is going to be pretty isolated and safe. He is propositioned by these farmers who have rode an entire day, you know, after they heard about his arrival, to, proposition him to come and help, you know, protect and defend and all this other stuff. He gets in a little scuffle with Carano's character, and yet they kind of have a mutual respect thing after this fight, and it's like, she's still, like, beefy, and I don't know, she almost looks like she's put on more muscle mass, and she's, like, less lean when she was a fighter, which is, I don't know, and she looks different, but she's, you know, once again, good performance and all that stuff, and better than I was anticipating from her once I, you know, realized it was her after the fact. But the story of them being propositioned to go and defend and join forces, and it's almost got like the Seventh Samurai, you know, kind of vibe in that regard, because it's, you know, we're gonna train these farmers to fight against these people, and it's just too familiar. And it introduces this little love story kind of thing with Mando and this one woman who was there. And I mean, it just didn't really feel like it forwarded the story as much as the last couple episodes did. This is on par with forwarding the story, kind of like 2 was, you know? And but I like 2 significantly more. It's not a bad episode, but I will definitely contend, despite the fact that it was, you know, fairly well directed, it was the writing. As much as I love you, Jon Favreau, and you've done a terrific job thus far, this was just too by the numbers, too familiar. And I mean, all of the kids, like, just kind of like oogling over little Baby Yoda. I understand it, okay? That we're all doing it. He is a cute little peanut, as my lady was saying, but nonetheless, it's I don't know, it felt too familiar, and it felt very much so like a self-contained episode, almost like, you know how the X-Files would do episodes that were like a one-shot, almost, if I'm going to use comic terminology, and yes, we had our familiar characters that we liked, but it was very self-contained, and it didn't really propel the main storyline with the alien, you know, conspiracies and the smoking man and just all of those different things. Like, there was the main, like, story arc, and then there was the little one-off kind of stories. This felt, for The Mandalorian, much more like just a little one-off story, and yeah, in that regard, I mean, yeah, I was kind of unimpressed. This is the first episode where I was kind of underwhelmed. I will just state that very plainly. It's my opinion, and that doesn't take anything away from Bryce, and that doesn't take anything away from what Filoni and you know, Jon Favreau have done thus far with this. But yes, this is most definitely my least favorite episode that we have seen thus far in the 4 episodes that have transpired thus far. So yes, I guess I'm just going to leave it at that, and I look forward to next Friday when I have the next installment of this. I'm curious where things are going to go, because you do at least have one confirmation at the end of this, without spoiling stuff, that it could be just self-contained here, self-contained there, and maybe they'll wrap back around to main story thread. But there is one thing in particular that maybe we'll find out in a later episode. You're wondering why something is on this planet, and I have to be vague here, and they don't explain why. And it's, I mean, remnants of a former time, perhaps, and still there, and maybe harnessed by whoever was using it. I'm really having to dance around the issue here, but that just kind of irked me a little bit, that we didn't get any explanation there. And nonetheless, yes, this episode was my least favorite thus far, and we will just leave it at that, and I will approach the next one with the utmost positivity, because this has still been really rad status as a whole. And so, yes, everybody, I have been Jaime En Fuego. You can find me on all social media sectors like Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, here on YouTube for Enfuegotainment, where I've been doing tons of Star Wars coverage in a galaxy far, far away, including retro reviews of the original trilogy, which are coming very soon. I have already posted reviews of the prequel trilogy, as well as a few of the novels that have already come out this year. I'm reading one called Lords of the Sith, which came out in like 2014 or 15. It was one of the first after the Disney rebranding and acquisition, and it's a cool post Revenge of the Sith story with the Emperor and Darth Vader and an initial assassination attempt that transpires. And so yes, that's one that I'm starting to go through, and I will be putting up a review of that hopefully in the next few days. But December, with the Rise of Skywalker fast approaching, is going to be Star Wars coverage crazy. So just look forward to some comic book stuff, some novel stuff, those reviews of the original trilogy, and probably a second look at both The Last Jedi and The Force Awakens. And yes, if you like more serious coverage and you've been on here for stuff like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood and Wild Rose, stuff like that, I'm going to make my way through the 3.5 hours of The Irishman. I promise. I just need to find the time in these next couple of days. The new Scorsese is getting major Oscar buzz. It's now available on Netflix as of this Thanksgiving weekend, and so look forward to that in the coming days as well. But unless you live under a spectacular rock of some sort, you probably are on here because you've seen me on The Horror Show. So if for whatever reason you're not properly familiarized, youtube.com/The Horror Show channel. We put up at least one episode every day, sometimes two, if there is proper coverage that is necessary. I do a Stephen King show every Saturday called Hail to Stephen King, which is a ton of fun. And then lastly, every Monday evening on the Willis Greedia YouTube channel, yes, 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific, for Show Business, where we look at the previous weekend's box office numbers, crunch that stuff, also look ahead, and make some predictions about the upcoming week, and have a little palaver about the biggest stories in the 7 days since last we convened. So, once again, I've been Fuego, y'all have been Rad Status, and until the real of Ka comes around once more, hasta luego, Cinemigos, and constant viewers of the Disney Plus service. But I'm hopeful that we get to share more of this discussion about a galaxy far, far away sooner rather than later. And until then, remember, may the Force be with you, always. And